Here on Flow FM, we're chatting with the Shadow South Australian Treasurer, Matt Cowdrey. How are you, Matt?
Very well, thank you.
We thought we'd check in with you after Standard & Poor's or S&P issued their latest rating for South Australia when it comes to our credit rating. It's not AAA yet. Hopefully it will be one day. But they also made some comments about the lack of a fiscal strategy from the current government.
That's right. It's obviously something that we've identified both in terms of fiscal policy, but also really a degree of economic strategy from the current government. I think it was pretty clear from the time that the Liberal Party spent in government that there was a clear view of where we wanted the state to go. The growth state agenda, the continual expansion of trade offices that led to record export numbers, and really the distinct difference in vision for Lot 14, something that is now transformed into a place where businesses have well and truly been attracted to, an employment hub and a centre for new industry in South Australia. So I think S&P have identified something that the opposition has been really calling the government to put in place since they took office earlier this year.
Now, I'm trying to reconcile. The opposition have said that the government's been riding on the coattails of the economic performance of the previous government, and yet Treasurer Stephen Mullighan said in a comment to us about the S&P data that they are trying to remove the negative watch that was put on the state budget by the previous Liberal government, or the watch that was put on by S&P because of the government's performance. What do you say in response to that?
Well, look, I think that has to be taken in terms of context. So that occurred in 2020. When obviously, based on a significant number of issues relating to COVID, there was obviously surpluses that weren't achieved during those years due to the spending that was necessary to ensure, A, that the economy kept moving, but B, that we were able to provide the health outcomes that South Australians expected of their government at that time. It's important to remember that in 2020, not just in terms of a rating outlook downgrade, but the rating themselves was downgraded for New South Wales and Victoria. So I think that does have to be taken in context of the time that occurred. It is also important to note that the former government did forecast a return to surplus in this year, which is the exact thing that S&P was keen to see observed over forward years. So I think it's slightly cute to word it in that way from the current Treasurer, but in terms of welcoming today's announcement that we've maintained the current outlook, that is certainly a good thing, but we do want to see those surpluses maintained moving forward, and there are some clear risks to that. There's been some pretty significant cost savings across the departments from the current government put in place, and those need to be achieved to hit those forecast surpluses moving forward.
Now, S&P have highlighted also the big infrastructure spending program and what that might mean on the debt front. Are you supportive of the infrastructure spending the government's doing, or should it be doing more to stimulate the economy?
Well, the clear thing in terms of infrastructure projects that came from the most recent budget was the approach that has now been taken to push some of these projects further and further out down into the forward estimates to balance some upfront issues that have been created by significant spending commitments made by the government coming into this most recent election. So what we're keen to see is those projects get on and going, because the longer that they're delayed, the higher the cost of those projects to the taxpayers of South Australia when they do eventually get started. So the key thing is to commence with those. There've been a number where we've just seen review after review after review. We need to get shovels in the ground and get moving.
Now, with next Tuesday, the Reserve Bank meeting, and expected to again raise the cash rate when it comes to interest rates, the ability to service the amount of debt the state is covering is going to continue to get difficult. What is the opposition's position on the amount of debt we're carrying and what needs to be done about it?
Yes, well, the debt maintenance is obviously one of the big considerations in budgets moving forward. One of the things that we were able to achieve over the last 4 years, when we did have historically low numbers in terms of debt servicing based on historically low interest rates, we were able to put away and shift a large amount of debt into longer-term bonds that did hold quite sensible interest repayment rates. So as those start to expire into future years, we'll have to obviously be well aware of what the current forecast is and where the world is in terms of interest rates at that time. But it's something that we're certainly well aware of.
Now, just lastly, I know you have commented previously about the unemployment rate in South Australia with the Jobs and Skills Summit starting tomorrow in Canberra. Is the state government able to say it's doing a good job on unemployment, or is the opposition saying we really need to make further inroads for our own state?
Well, I think in terms of the unemployment rate, the key thing here is where we sit comparative to the rest of Australia. So the current government now has a streak of 4 or 5 months where we've sat at the bottom of that table, and that wasn't achieved at any point in time under the previous government. So again, if I go back to where we started the interview around what is the economic strategy, where are we looking to provide opportunities, which industries does the government believe need sector-wide support, where do we need to be focusing, those are the things that lead to employers and provide them confidence to invest in their businesses and move forward. So we obviously support any moves that would see South Australia coming from off the bottom of the pack in terms of current unemployment rate.
Matt Cowdrey, the Shadow Treasurer for South Australia, thank you so much for joining us today on Flow.
No problems. Thanks for having me.